your perspective is on Washington as, an executive at a 3D printing company. So you mentioned backstage that this is your first time in DC, right?
That's right.
And so I just wanted to hear, maybe could you tell us a little bit about what your company does and how you think about the regulatory environment as part of your strategy?
Absolutely. So we are a 3D printing company aimed to help professionals, whether that's a small, medium, large-size business, or other professionals like dental professionals or in the medical industry, people who need to print for their professional life. We started out of MIT about 7 or 8 years ago, and the goal was always to serve this purpose, make a machine that is accessible, easy to use. So we use a technology called stereolithography. It's a laser-based technology. It allows us to use a lot of different type of materials. We have 15 to 20 plastics today, also ceramic material that people can print with. It's been a really fun ride. We are now one of the biggest professional companies. We've sold about 40,000 printers, just to give you a little bit of scale. And today we're really working on pushing the boundaries on materials and applications. I think a lot of the conversation today about 3D printing is how can we really increase the scope. I think it's very obvious to everybody that 3D printing is going to have a major impact in a lot of different sectors of industry. Some people think also in kind of the personal space where we're not really directly working on that, but undoubtedly that potentially will come at one point as well. Whether that's something that you can buy from Amazon or something like that. That's really interesting, downloading files, etc. We are right now really in the phase of scaling up our technology. And part of that is, I think, starting to impact when it comes to Washington and policymaking, more and more circles, because people have questions about how safe it is, how wide-ranging the technology can be. And we want to be part of that conversation. We are really working with almost every part of industry. Today, a lot of the conversation, I think there was a video just before about 3D printed guns. One story that we addressed this a few times, so I thought about another way to kind of think about it, which is that really you can use, this is from a professor at MIT actually, that you can use really both a gun and a shovel to obviously hurt somebody, but only one of them is great to dig a hole. And I think a really important part of 3D printing is that it's super versatile. And very similarly to some other technologies that are allowing people to manipulate digital files, the question is, where should you regulate that? And that's a lot of the conversation where it is today.
That makes sense. And Congressman, I wanted to ask you a little bit about that, because you do represent the Silicon Valley area. When we see new technologies such as 3D printing and learn about some of their applications, there's sometimes a knee-jerk reaction to regulate. I mean, can you walk me through just kind of how you think about meeting with representatives from companies that are working on tech in these emerging spaces?
Well, I think it has to be a thoughtful, balanced approach, whether it's 3D printing or artificial intelligence or quantum computing, which is going to make it possible. And while I don't understand all the details of quantum computing, I think we have to demystify some of these things. I mean, all artificial intelligence is you have large sets of data and you're trying to find a pattern. And we need sophisticated computers to do it because you have a large set of data, and ordinary computers can't do that. And so quantum computing, which has a lot of science to it that I don't understand, basically makes it possible to do these large calculations. And we need to understand why a lot of this is good. I mean, it's good that we have 3D printing in America that's going to give us a manufacturing advantage, so then more manufacturing can come here. It's good that we have artificial intelligence in many applications. If we do have some form of driverless cars, that could lessen fatalities in this country dramatically. It could allow us to diagnose diseases in ways that weren't possible because we could look at mass numbers of information. But there is obviously possibilities of abuse. For example, when you're looking at large amounts of data, do we consider a person's race or gender? And probably we don't want to do that. And that raises questions of human values. Or what is the use of artificial intelligence? I mean, there was a famous controversy recently with Google and the Department of Defense, where some of the employees said, well, we don't want this technology to make drone strikes more effective at going against terrorists because civilians are killed. And the counter argument was, well, drone strikes are going to be happening right now anyway, and maybe this will diminish the civilian casualties. So the point is, by and large, I think technology is going to advance our nation, our world, but we have to think deeply about the values, and that's where the regulation comes in, to make sure that we're regulating it in a way that's advancing our democratic values.